We're live. We're live. Happy Monday. Everybody's having a great day today. Surprise live. We wanted to start doing more and more videos that focus on positivity and solutions, more solution and positivity based ideas. So today on Harambe Talks, we're going to talk about cooperation versus competition. Now, Darwin, the title is why Darwin may be one of the most misquoted people in the world, is people often talk about evolution, but it is misunderstood and misquoted. Now, you often hear the idea that uh, evolution is sort of survival of the fittest. That's what we hear: survival of the fittest, survival of the strongest. It's actually not that. What he was speaking about is survival of the most adaptable and the kindest. We'll get into that a little bit more. Now, the reason we want to talk about that is because Harambe means working together, being together, working in unity, and this is the idea of cooperation. Now, when we go back to Darwinism, what happens is over generations, different species confront different things. But one thing that is consistent that they always have to confront is the other species around them. So, we've had this entire world where tons of different species that could not really speak to each other have inhabited the same areas. And over the course of time, they have developed and but they have developed through adaptation, not through being the toughest. So, survival of the fittest is not necessarily correct. And I was just talking to Sierra, the producer of Harambe, earlier, and she was telling me she was listening to a podcast where they were talking about the bonobos being one of the most peaceful groups in the world. And what's super cool about that is that here you have, one of our closest living relatives, and it is one of the kindest groups, and they have learned that their way of getting along through life is cooperation. So, competition versus cooperation. They're very different concepts, and they're very different concepts at the heart of societies, at the heart of human societies, animal societies, books, all kinds of things. But again, Darwinism is quoted as saying survival of the fittest, but what he's really talking about is the species that can adapt survives. The species that can go with the flow. The species that can go, oh my gosh, all the berries at this height are gone. I need to grow to this height. And then over generations, they find ways and they grow to where they need to be able to eat the proper berries to be able to survive. So nature has its own built-in challenges and obstacle course that a lot of species inhabit, but again, they don't stay around because they're mean and tough and the fittest. They stay around because they've learned how to adapt to the world around them, learn how to adapt to other species around them, learn how to be like Harambe and to be in unity and to talk to everybody. So I hope everybody's been having a great day so far. This is the one thing that we definitely wanted to talk about today, because, in Harambe, we talk about the fact that we're all hominids. Now, hominids are all off of the gorilla, the ape species. So we are all part of a gorilla subset. So the interesting thing is, I think it relates a lot to how do we treat each other, but also how do we treat the world around us. Humans have built societies that have been designed to be in conflict and to use force and other things to accomplish goals. Now, the animal world, we watch documentaries, and sometimes they're really crazy, like Shark Week. Okay, a lot of people I know like Shark Week. I know there's a lot of cool stuff on it, but at the same time, Shark Week misrepresents so many things. I mean, not even to mention the fact that they once were caught actually faking an entire story, putting out a fake shark, designing a fake. The whole thing was fiction, and they had to admit to it later. And then they even added fake sharks into lakes to get people to see shark sightings and get excited as a way to promote and sell it. So the problem with this is that it's a fear-based thing, because a lot of animal documentaries will say, we will look at animals through human society's eyes. And it's a reverse anthropomorphism, where we are trying to put what we think and how we feel on what they do, as opposed to the regular anthropomorphism, which is trying to sort of humanize them a little bit, but we do it the wrong way. What we're doing is we're saying, oh, shark attack, oh, it was an attack. They were, hunting us. There's all these terms that are very negative and very aggressive that when we just describe the animal world, it goes through this filter of sort of fear that we don't belong there. And we've built ourselves a kind of a fable that we don't belong there. We belong inside of these walls instead. And we've, in effect, by building concrete and building all of these walls, we have created a disconnect between us and the world around us. And in some ways, that's fantastic, because when it rains, you don't want to be sleeping out on, sleeping bags all the time, especially with all the wildlife and things that are in different areas. So, it makes sense that we're there. But what we have done is we have tried to see the world only through our own filters. We think animals can't communicate, or they're non-sentient because they can't communicate with us with our limited language abilities. So, this is part of the adaptation that has to happen. People don't tend to believe that they are part of the adaptation, that everything must adapt to them, when in fact, we definitely need to adapt. And, just as in Darwin's theory, in order for us to continue to grow and continue to stay on the scene, in the game as a species, if we don't adapt, we will die. And a lot of species don't have that opportunity to adapt, and they do die. They can't go with the flow. They can't change how they react to the heat, in the oceans and they can't change how the acidification in the oceans is affecting them. They can't change, and as a result, pieces of their environment are being pulled away due to human use. Other environmental issues perhaps too, but definitely due to human use. And so what we really have here is a situation where we, again, want the world to bend to us. We want the world to adapt to us. And that is the reverse of Darwinism. And, it's definitely something for us to be considering as we move forward further and further towards losing our biodiversity, losing our climate, and losing the way that the world worked 5 years ago in nature. It's the nature we understand. So, adaptation is a long process. So, we're going to really have to go through quite a bit before we can adapt fully and continue on our process. But one of the things that we can do right now, even if we can't physically make adaptations that we need to make changes in the future, we can mentally adapt and change the way that we treat the animals around us, treat the world around us, start to contemplate how animals are and why they're important to being in the wild. Why we don't necessarily need zoos. Now, if anybody watched last week, or 2 weeks ago, talked about keystone species. I just want to play this again to remind everybody that gorilla is a keystone species that can make or break our life here on Earth.
And gorillas are keystone species in their habitat, by which I mean, if you think of when they build an arch, they build a wooden arch, they put the stones on top of the wooden arch, and the last stone is the one in the middle called the keystone, and then you can take the wood away and the stones stay upright. Keystones are really important. Take them away, the whole thing collapses. So applying that to the ecology of a complex ecosystem like a forest, some species are so important with so many ecologically dependent other species that if you remove that one species, the ecosystem would certainly degrade, if not completely collapse. So if we think of them as like the gardeners of the forest, they're pruning the trees, they're thinning out the vegetation.
So the gardeners of the forest. The gardeners of the forest. We need them in the forest. If they're not doing their job in the forest, the entire planet, as a keystone species, if they disappear, the entire planet will debalance and things are going to go in a crazier, more rapid area. So I don't know if anybody's making any comments. For some reason, I'm not seeing any up here. So let me know you're out there. Say hi and let me know what you think about Darwin's theory, and let me know what you think about cooperation versus competition. Now, I want to bring the cooperation from the animal world to the human world. Very often in a lot of different environmental movements, cooperation is something that just doesn't seem to exist. Now, one of the reasons I bring this up is because recently in the UK, there has been so much cooperation between so many different groups that they have been able to get a lot of laws passed for animals. And I don't know how many other countries are passing a lot of laws for animals. I know here in America, we have the Big Cat Safety Act that people worked really hard on, including our friend Jeff Kremer and a lot of other people worked on to get passed. But in England, they've been able to stop the use of elephants in circuses. And at the moment, they actually just recently got something passed where companies are not allowed to advertise any sort of animal exploitation vacation package. So no more dolphin photos, no more orca shows. They can no longer sell animal exploitation based tourism as a tourism package from the travel agents in England. Absolutely amazing. Chop it off at the stem. It's the only way. It's the only way this can make that kind of a change. So these are the kind of changes we need to see. And that was cooperation. That's what cooperation gets. I've been in conservation since 2017. Well, actually closer to 2014, but that was like volunteering, going to, festivals, selling t-shirts for what used to be Sea Shepherd, now Paul Watson Foundation. So I was just sort of like a land volunteer for a few years. Now, the reason I got into it is I've had over 13 different surgeries because of my cancer. And one of the surgeries was very massive. And it involved me basically having to lay in bed for months. I would say like 6 months or a little bit longer. And in that time period, I stumbled upon TV show Whale Wars. And I was like, whoa, this is it. This is what I've been missing. This is why I don't feel fulfilled inside. At the time, I was working in television. I was working in LA, and it was just a very kind of regular life. And then all of a sudden, I saw this and thought, I want to do something that means something. I've just gone through this horrible experience. This wasn't even my first surgery. This was like multiple surgeries in. So, I had cancer. They told me I would never have gone. And I realized that if, instead of worrying about prolonging my life or how long that is around for, or worrying about aspects of that, I should worry about the planet I live on and try to make a difference and pay my rent back to a planet that I never paid attention to before. Never paid attention to before. And that is most people's arc. As a conservationist, you find that most people started where the regular society stuff is, and then through a series of experiences, information, education, or realization, people end up on the other side and go, whoa, this is my spot over here. So, that was my personal story. So I started conservation at that time, and I had no idea what a quagmire of a thing it would become, because, there are so many groups and so many people, and there's only a certain amount of dollars. Now, luckily, Sierra and I don't run any NGOs. We're not fundraising for NGOs. We don't participate in any of that. We make movies. We're on a different side of things. So we're not competing for NGO dollars. But NGOs that are competing for NGO dollars tend to have their own brands and less cooperation. And I say conservationists need to learn from nature. We need to learn from Darwin. We need to learn to cooperate, because if we don't cooperate, we're not going to make it. And if we don't cooperate, we're not going to get anywhere. And this is something I see everywhere. Every country I go to, you find a topic, you start to see who are the players in the topic and who is out there making a big difference. And you reach out to them, and then this one doesn't like this one, and this one doesn't like this one, and this one doesn't like this one. But and that's just part of every facet of conservation. And I don't know why it's like that. Maybe it's people just have multiple approaches. I'm not quite sure, but it tends to happen. But when people work together, change can happen. So, that's one thing we really want to do with Harambe is bring that topic back in, that cooperation leads to solutions. Cooperation leads to change. Cooperation leads to a better future. Cooperation leads it in every way. And one thing that we learned in the movie is that nature has a way of reminding us, and that includes getting to do a movie about Harambe, who had the most perfect heart-shaped nose.
When I first met Harambe, lots of people knew him before I did. And like I said, he was a star before I got to know him. And people were telling me, you're really going to love him. And one of the things that people always loved about him was this beautiful heart-shaped nose he has. And they would just be so thrilled when I get a picture like this that would show the heart. He was known as Handsome Harambe.
Mm-hmm. It melts me every time I get to see that. Anyway, I'm excited to see everybody's comments. I really want to know what your thoughts are again on Darwinism and cooperation versus competition. And what do you think we can do? There's so many levels and so many layers to this. So it's a very big topic, but something that I'm very excited about and something that we talk about all the time at Harambe HQ. So anyway, I hope you guys are having a great day. We'll be coming back on live pretty much every day. Start talking about positive stories in the eco world, positive solutions in the eco world, and positive inspirations in the eco world, and little bits of Harambe here and there. Anyway, I hope you guys are having a great Monday. Cheers, and hope you enjoy the rest of it. I can't wait to see more comments about what you think about Darwin's theory and what you think about survival of the fittest versus adaptation.